They will give a SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses of Corpus Christi and of our organization, with the idea being that our weaknesses we will be able to then put into this 10-year destination development strategy, and that will take about another 12 months, 8 to 12 months to work on. That will be a lot of individual sessions, charrettes, focus groups of people. Will try to break those down into individual groups, people that want to focus on the airport, people that want to focus on the convention center, people that want to focus on the beach, for instance. And from there, we will hopefully all work together to build a better Corpus Christi. So two things to take away there is, one, please fill out the assessment. If you've not, you have till the end of this month to do so. And number two, please mark your schedule for Thursday, July 23rd to come and attend that event. It'll take about 2.5 hours. The first part will be giving the assessment, and then the second part will be some just general brainstorming about where do we go from here. And at that time, I'll take any questions that you have.
Well, thank you. Pretty comprehensive, pretty aggressive, so thank you.
Thank you.
Corpus Christi agreeing with you so far?
So far, it's my 3-month anniversary.
Well, welcome again, Corpus
I would have
Christi.
liked to have ate in some more restaurants in that first 3 months and went to some of the more of the tourism attractions, but overall it's been very well.
Well, they're opening up now, so
They
you
are.
can get to all
They
of it.
are getting in there now.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank
Anybody
you.
have any questions? No question, all right.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brett. You can see why I recommended hiring Brett, right? He's really a great person for our organization, especially at this time. So, in fact, just on that note, Brett and I are going to go to the island tomorrow. And Councilwoman Guajardo and Smith are going to join. We're going to just go visit some of the new developments like the IGA grocery store and a development by Alex Harris. We're going to stop at the Waves coffee shop and that German bakery as well, just to kind of get down there and learn a little bit more about the island. So thank you, Brett, for accepting that invitation to go along down there tomorrow. Mayor, just 3 other quick things, 2 financial updates and then 1 on a corridor plan that we're working on. So you got the word yesterday, and we just want to tell the community as well that the city's credit rating was upgraded yesterday, even despite the national economic downturn because of COVID-19. So one of our 3 investment services that we use that gives us a credit rating, Moody's Investor Services upgraded our utility revenue bonds 1 notch and with a stable outlook, and that places our city's credit worthiness in the highest grade category. So that is excellent news, especially given where we are as a nation with our economy.
Hold on, Mr. Manager.
Yes.
I don't see any media here today. For those of you watching, this may be the only time you hear this, but maybe there's some media people that will report it later. But this is good news. Media is welcome to come back anytime. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor. We did send out a media release yesterday. We're hoping to see something soon, but the rating reflects, according to Moody's, it reflects outstanding management practices, including a multi-year planning and appropriate rate setting in our water utilities department to support that system's growing customer base. They recognize that. Standard & Poor's upheld the city's utility revenue rating. We have a high rating with them, and it continues to keep us in that high grade category with them. The upgrade this is the best thing for the community because it's about our money, their money. The upgrade will help keep interest rates low as we borrow money to improve our system. The council approved an issuance of $110 million a couple of weeks ago to improve our water and sewer systems and capital maintenance on the system. And so by having a higher credit rating, that means we pay less interest, and then what that means is the community's money gets invested in more infrastructure, more improvement. So we're doing work instead of paying interest, which everybody wants to do that. So in addition, with our low interest rate, it will help us as we refinance about $23 million in existing debt to get even a lower interest rate. Given the downturn, now's a good time to refinance, and so we're doing that as well with the financial advice of our advisor, Noe Inahosa from Inahosa, Estrada and Inahosa. Okay, and then on the finance, keeping on that finance track, and we told you that each council meeting we kind of give you an update on the budget. The update for this week is that our financial policies, the city council has adopted annual financial policies. will be on the City Council agenda next week for consideration. This is something that the council has done, which is applaudable or laudable, which is that the council approves a set of financial policies before the budget process begins, and we're at that time. And so next week you will have the current financial policies for consideration on the agenda. The adoption of financial policies is a best practice in governments, and it helps to have a strategic long-term approach to our financial management, having those guidelines approved by council. Our financial policies are reviewed annually, and they provide guidance as we develop the budget for city council consideration and ultimate adoption. Now, it's a pretty lengthy, it's generally a pretty lengthy document, a little bit of dense reading, but there are about 5 main areas in there I just wanted to remind you of. So one is it talks about reserve requirements, our rainy day reserve requirements, not only for the general fund, but for several internal service funds, our enterprise funds, and the debt service funds as well. It has a section in there that talks about funding levels from the general fund for street maintenance and residential street reconstruction. And so this has been such a serious issue for the community that within our financial policies is required transfers from the general fund that goes up a little bit each year. So you want to look at that because next year it's a little bit more of an increase from the general fund to street maintenance. That's in that document. It provides guidance on operating contingencies within the general fund. That's kind of a rainy day fund of sorts. There's information in the document on the structure of the capital improvement plan, and that's important, our long-term investment plan and infrastructure. And then there's guidance even on beach maintenance funding from the hotel occupancy tax funds. That's in there as well. Last week I convened my executive leadership team, our assistant city managers and other folks, and we met with our budget director and the new finance director, Heather. And as a group, we went through all 8 pages of the document, word by word. I want to make sure my team was, and even myself, were fully aware of what is in the financial policies. We recommended some minor revisions, and you'll see those in your packet for next Tuesday. So it's a good document, it's a good plan, and I think the city's, that's a good practice that the city has had. And then the final thing, Mayor, and then we'll turn it back over to the council, is the Northwest Corridor plan, Northwest Boulevard. This deals with our great Calallen area of town, and so we know that there's a pretty significant corridor that over time has changed the geography around it. It was a big highway at one time with probably not much development, but now there's 3 schools, major shopping attractions, a Starbucks, Chick-fil-A, and very poor walkability. Knock on wood, we haven't had a fatality there in recent months, but there's been several fatalities, pedestrian fatalities from lack of sidewalk and other problems. So we, working with an urban planning firm, Assecure Robinson, we retained them to create the Northwest Boulevard Corridor Plan. It's a corridor plan that will be used. It covers the 3-mile stretch of Northwest Boulevard from Interstate 69 all the way to County Road 73 in Calallen. It's in City Council District 1. And funding for this plan was in the budget. We put it in the budget. Council approved it last year. So there's 2 good things there. 1, we're developing a plan, but 2, we're doing what we said we would do on schedule, which is develop the plan. And so the plan will guide future development in the area. The area still has some vacant land, and there's a lot of development happening around, so the plan will help to guide that. It will identify opportunities to improve safety along Northwest Boulevard. That's an important one. And it will influence future public investment. The MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, has an allocation for that roadway, $18 million. And so this study will be used to help guide how those funds should be used. The planning effort will lay the foundation for any future engineering designs and construction. We're partnering with several folks to get it done, including TxDOT. It is a TxDOT facility, the MPO, the RTA, and Calallen Independent School District. The plan will include engagement opportunities, conceptual drawings, and implementation strategies. So this month, the reason I'm bringing it to your attention is we've just done some work on this with engaging the public. This month, we're working on creating the plan's vision and the goals based on public feedback. We held one session on May 28th, a virtual meeting. Councilman Roy was there, myself, and other staff, and a pretty good number from the community attended that virtual meeting. and we had good attendance. Councilman Roy participated. By the end of July, we'll hold another public meeting and ask the community to help select a preferred development alternative. So there's numerous alternatives that we can consider, but by the end of July, we'll kind of work with the community to see what is the preferred one. And then in September of this year, we'll present the plan to City Council and hold a public hearing as well prior to the council adopting it here at one of our council meetings. So one final thing for the community is that there is a survey online that they can complete, and it's a simple website to go to, corridorscc.com. Okay, so corridorscc.com, go there. Anybody can fill it out. You don't have to live up in Calallen. So far, we've received 340 surveys, which is pretty decent. And the surveys will close Sunday, June 28th. And so we encourage people to get out there because the best corridor or the best plans are those that include a lot of people, right? And 340 is pretty good so far, but don't be afraid to get out there and fill that survey out. And we appreciate Councilman Roy for being part of the initiative as well. Mayor, that concludes my remarks for this morning. Thank you.
All right. Our next agenda item will be the minutes of the June 9th meeting. Does anyone have any additions, corrections, modifications, deletions on the minutes, or entertain a motion for passage?
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Anybody in the back room? I want to wake them up. Anybody out here? No? You want to call, wait, you want a voice vote on this one? You don't want a voice vote? You want a roll call vote? Huh?
Voice vote, I'm sorry, Mary Beth, the voice vote, fine.
Okay. Okay, on the minutes, we'll take all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Before we get into the board and commission, committee appointments, while we haven't been doing the proclamations like we normally do when we are not under a order from the governor, we have continued to provide certificates of commendation and proclamations. This week, on behalf of the City Council and the City of Corpus Christi, we sent a certificate of commendation awarded to the Naval Security Department, Naval Air Station Corpus Christi, commending them on the work that was done on Thursday, May 21. An armed gunman attempted to enter the Naval Air Station Corpus Christi through the north gate. The gunman opened fire at 6:15 and was trying to speed through the security gate, wounding a sailor, a member of the base security. She was able to roll over, hit the switch, and raise the barrier, preventing the man from getting onto the base. Other security personnel shot and killed the gunman. The FBI determined the incident was terrorism-related, and due to the heroic actions of Navy Security Department, countless lives were saved by stopping the shooter and denying him access to the beach, to the base, close to the beach. And we just wanted to express our appreciation and thank you for their outstanding service to the community, and we provided them this commendation. We didn't name any names. That's still a kind of a protected item in terms of from the military standpoint, and we were happy to do that. Then we've got a proclamation here declaring June 17th the National Waste and Recycling Worker Day, appreciating the people that keep our city clean on a daily basis all through the community, and that the National Waste and Recycling Workers Week is to be able to recognize and thank them for all the work. And if you, I don't know about the city secretary's office, but I know in the mayor's office, if your garbage isn't picked up that day, if these folks miss it, we know about it. We are dependent upon you, and we look forward to seeing you every week. And we appreciate the work that you do, and so we provided a proclamation for that. And then a reminder, I believe it was last week, we issued a proclamation that runs through this week, June 9th through June 19th is the 155th anniversary of the Juneteenth celebration. So we're continuing to make these proclamations and things, even though we're not down here in the well doing them, we are getting them to the folks that are interested, and they use them in their organizations and their promotional ideas. On boards and committee appointments, we have 4, and let me see if, as I was going through my notes last night, Ms. Huerta, if I understand the language of this, the airport board, there's 4 vacancies, which means the terms are up. That doesn't mean they don't have anybody there.
Right.
And 4 of those are up for reappointments, but 2 of them are gonna switch from being an,
Well, actually, it's just one person. There's 2 people seeking reappointment of those 4, and it's Luis Buentello and John Riley.
now, this is the airport board.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Well, now, the way I read it, Bonteo and Riley are seeking reappointment.
That's right.
And Robert Williams, he's met his 6-year service limitation as,
As a regular member with voting rights.
and Don Pfefferman is not seeking reappointment as an advisory member, but has got his name in for a member, which means if they just flip
Right.
spots, they could be reappointed.
Well, Mr. Pfefferman was an advisory non-voting, so he wasn't really a member of the board. He sat out.
Okay.
I mean, he served on there as non-voting, but he basically sat out. So he now would like to become a regular member of the board.
And Mr. Williams.
Mr. Williams termed out, right?
And he would like to be an advisory non-voting
That's right.
member.
Yeah,
They're
to
just-
continue
they'd like
serving,
to
but he
flip.
would, it's in a non-voting position. So it's up to the council whether you want to do that. And those positions are typically 1 year. So it's not for a full term, but the advisory non-voting it's a 1-year term. It's
All right.
like a temporary stint.
So technically, we've got 1 vacancy to fill if we make reappointments for everybody and make the switch.
Right.
And that one, Charles Caffey unfortunately passed away, and we'll hear a little bit more about that in a little while from the manager, but he served with distinction on our airport board and all throughout the community, and we're regretful that he passed away, and I believe that was yesterday after a pretty short illness. But, so we have 1 vacancy.
Well, you have to actually appoint Mr. Pfefferman. I mean, we're talking about it, but you would, if you wanted, the council could reappoint Luis Buentello and John Riley, and then Mr. Pfefferman would be appointed as a regular member, right? A voting member, and then that would leave you with 1 slot remaining.
Mayor, I'd like to move to reappoint Luis Buentello and John Riley.
Okay.
Second.
Well, Mr. Badar, were you doing, which one were you doing, I guess, when you? I was gonna do the same thing. Okay, straight, okay. That's fine. All right.
All right, so the motion is for
For the
Mateo and Riley for
For
reappointment.
step 1, right, to reappoint those 2 members. Mr. Molina made the motion. Who seconded? I missed that, I'm sorry.
Councilman Hernandez.
Okay, and Gail seconded. So
Okay.
that's the first action.
All right, there's a
being taken.
all right, the motion then to reappoint Buntello and
And Riley.
Riley. Any discussion on that? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so.
All right, and then you'd need a motion if we're gonna make the switch for Robert Williams to be appointed as an advisory, non-voting member, and Mr. Pfefferman as a regular member. I mean, is that what the council wants to do?
Yeah, if the council's okay with that, we can do that instead of, and then take nominations on the other slot. Yes?
All right.
Okay, so
Ms.
GS.
Ms. Wartho makes a motion that Mr. Robert Williams become an advisory, non-voting member, and that Mr. Pfefferman be moved up to be I guess, a community or regular
A regular member, yeah,
member.
that's right.
What about, you don't want him to be an irregular member? Or?
No.
Okay. All right. So there's a motion and a second on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we have 1 vacancy that needs to have someone nominated.
I'd like to nominate Randall Hicks.
All right, there's a motion and a second for Mr. Hicks. That's a motion, that's not a nomination, so
Right,
Oh,
were there any other
yeah.
nominations besides
Well,
Mr. Hicks?
did anyone else have anyone they wanted to nominate?
Okay.
All right, well, you want to nominate Hicks? Or
I'll nominate Hicks, if, yeah.
Okay. All right, so we got a motion for a nomination for Maria Rodriguez.
And Randy Hicks.
Yeah. Now, is she still with the Convention and Tourist Bureau? I thought she took a job not in town anymore.
Maria Rodriguez?
Is it?
Oh,
Isn't that-
Teresa.
Wasn't that
It's
the one that had
Teresa
the,
Rodriguez.
isn't she the one that did the,
No, she left. She
Sister
was,
City
no,
Committee and all
she
that?
left.
yeah, she left.
She left.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
left.
Yeah, she's not here anymore. Okay. So that wouldn't be good. Okay. So it,
So. No, she moved.
I think
She
she
did when
moved,
she turned in her application. Is it a recent application?
I think she moved to somewhere, San
She did
Antonio
move.
or Austin or
No,
something.
she moved out of town.
Oh, she did.
But we really should make sure we know this, you know, before we're nominating people that we think
Yeah.
are still
How old,
here.
is that a year application?
No, it's from October, so it's still within that.
Within the year. We check within a year,
Well,
but
she-
I mean,
She left, she
I
was
saw
with the
Maria Rodriguez,
Sister
so-
City Committee and some other stuff, but she moved. I remember getting her notice.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that, council. We'll check that.
Okay,
I saw Maria
All right.
Rodriguez, not Teresa, so.
okay, she's gone. So that leaves Randall
Randy
Hicks.
Hicks. Mhm.
All right. Any other nominations? If not, entertain a motion for the approval of Randall Hicks' appointment. And you want to make that
Greg-
motion?
I made the motion, yes.
And is there a second?
Greg, second.
Greg, second. Okay, now we got a motion and a second for Randall Hicks. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, that takes care of the airport board. All right, on the animal care board, the way I see it, you had, 2 reappointments and there's 1 vacancy.
Nope, there's 2 vacancies representing the following preferred categories of 1 at-large and 1 animal welfare shelter. And the 2 people are there's 2 people seeking reappointment who are Linda Jabot and Sharon Ray.
Now, hold on, let me get over here to I'm trying to figure out, how come I can't interpret what you give us? I know I'm not, I don't understand all that stuff, Miss Martha. Where's my, is this the Board of Adjustment? Animal care. You have 2
Seeking
for reappointment.
Right, yeah, 2 vacancies, and those 2 people are seeking reappointment.
I move to reappoint.
Okay, and that's Linda Jabot and Sharon Ray. Did somebody make a motion to that effect?
Yes, move to reappoint.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All opposed? And best I can tell, that's it, right?
Yes, that's right. Okay, you ready for the Board of Adjustment? We have 7 vacancies on that one, and it represents the following categories: 5 regular members and 2 alternates. And just a note on this one, there's a general policy to move an alternate member to a regular slot when there is one available. Gordon Robinson is serving as an alternate member, and so the recommendation is to move him to a regular slot. And we do need to recommend the postponement of one of the alternates at this time. So if we, there's 4 people seeking reappointment. There's Sean Caracca, Burris McCree, Gordon Robinson, and David Lee Walker.
All right, entertain a motion on their seeking reappointment.
I make a motion to
Second.
reappoint and also change Gordon Robinson's appointment from alternative to regular member.
Okay, great.
All right? Does
Second.
everybody understand that? That the motion to reappoint the 4 that are seeking reappointment and to reclassify Mr. Robinson from alternate to just full status as a member.
Right, he'd go from alternate to regular member, correct?
Okay. And that, there's a second, right, somewhere?
Yes, Mr. Garza seconded.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and then we have 2 vacancies.
right? We're, one of the alternates we're
one of 'em-
recommending to be postponed. So we're looking at one regular member.
All right, and we have two people that submitted names, right? Or, I guess are those,
Yes, Mr. Barrera and Kenton Mullins.
yeah. And that would be for the regular member, not the alternate.
Right.
Okay. So does anybody have that, or do you want to?
We don't have any diversity in this board at all.
Nominate Ricardo Barrera for the regular member.
Ricardo Barrera, okay.
Second,
Well, it's a nomination.
it's a nomination, yeah.
So Mr. Hernandez nominates Ricardo Barrera. Are there any other nominations?
Yeah. Did you have a nomination, Mr. Garza, or was
No,
that?
he seconded
He
that one,
seconded.
but
No,
we're still taking
I'm in agreement.
nominations.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any nominations? All right, if not, then I'll entertain a motion for appointment of Ricardo Barrera.
So move.
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
aye.
All opposed? Okay. And Transportation Advisory.
We just had two, so we're going to just postpone the alternate.
We have two seeking reappointment, right?
No, we did Gordon Robinson. It was combined in a motion. Mr. Smith combined both to realign Mr. Robinson.
To a regular member.
Right.
So who's going to fill his alternate?
But we only had two. So we're just going to do the regular member and save the alternate. Okay, so for Transportation Advisory Commission,
We got
we
two.
have 3 vacancies.
Point of order,
Yes, sir.
the alternate position, are we going to appoint Kenton Mullins to that? There's two alternate positions,
If you
correct?
like, there's 2, usually we provide, we try to provide 2 resumes for a slot. If you want to just appoint them both, we could do that.
Well, you have, as I read this, you have the one where we vacated Gordon Robinson into an alternate, to a regular position, right? And then you have Robert Brian Johnson that exceeded the absence, so there's 2 alternate positions?
Right.
So are we?
You can. Would you like to
Because
appoint?
there's not an opening, and just appoint one of them?
You can. Do you want to appoint Mr. Mullins to that slot?
I would like to nominate Mr. Mullins for one of the alternate positions.
Okay.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Now, back to the transportation. You got 2 seeking reappointment. Let's deal with that one first. Jeffrey Pollock and Leo Rios.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Mr. Pollock and Mr. Rios.
I second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Excuse me?
A second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we got those 2 reappointments done, and then there's a vacancy for,
We're postponing the regular one, so it's 3 vacancies, right? But we're recommending the postponement of the regular member. So we're just filling 2 vacancies today. And those
What
have
is
just
that?
been filled.
I don't understand. On this side, you've got the yellow, which is the ones that are vacant or up for reappointment.
Yeah.
That's
Yes, sir.
2. Well, where are you getting these 3 or 4?
Well, the third one, terms expire actually for another individual. We just don't have resumes for that right now.
No applications?
No. It's been during COVID. People really haven't been
All right, so we'll
paying
put,
attention to board and
well,
committee appointments.
what do we want to take?
So we
Do we
just
want to hold
took,
up well, we need to appoint the 2 that are seeking reappointment.
we just did, well, Mr. Hunter made a motion and Mr. Smith seconded
we've
to
taken care
reappoint
of
those
that.
2 individuals.
So we
That's
just
right,
keep
Mayor.
advertising for the alternate or the
Right,
vacancy?
we're still advertising for the next member.
Okay, and that takes care of all our board and committee appointments?
Yes. Did we vote on that, though? I don't even know. Okay.
I think we did. If not,
All right.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Okay,
That was for the reappointment of Pollock and Rios for 2 times,
that's right.
so they can double their salary. Okay, Ryan? All right, we have consent agenda through 15.
It's 3 through 15, right?
3 through 15, I think, is what it says on my book. Mr. Znoni, you want to make some
Yes.
comment on?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we're going to recommend delaying by a week or two item number 4, which is the $500,000 nonprofit assistance program. This is something we worked with the Business and Jobs Development Board on, but we do have that unfortunate news that Libby Averett, who is the CEO of the United Way, the United Way would administer this program, and we want to give her some time, given the passing of her husband, Charles Caffey Jr., on Monday. And but we're real sad about that. He passed away after being diagnosed with cancer just 4 months ago. So I told Libby this morning that she's one of the strongest role models I've seen for us in a time like this. But we wanted to delay this so we can have her here to help us with some of the questions that we had from the Jobs Development Board, and we'll put it on a future agenda.
Mr. Zanoni, this is Donna Hurley with United Way of the Coastal Bend. Myself and a colleague representing United Way are here to answer any questions
Okay.
per Libby's request.
Yes.
Okay, your item pulling number 3 or number
pulling
4?
four or
The number 3 is the United Way, when a number
All right,
4 is
yeah,
it?
number 3 is, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong number.
Okay. All right,
He's pulling 3.
so he's recommending pull number 3. Anybody have any objection to that? If not, it'll be scheduled when Libby could be here.
Right.
Okay. All right, this is pulled. All right, anybody on items 4 through 15? Anybody want to discuss anything on items 4 through 15? Or pull one or anything? Well, I got a question on 4 I'd like to ask some questions on. Anybody have any others? All right, then entertain a motion for items.
Move to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve items, well, 3 has been pulled, 4 off the agenda, 4 has been pulled for discussion. So we're talking about items 5 through 15.
Yes.
All right, and there's one of you made a motion back there?
Yeah, Ben did.
Rudy made a motion and Gil or somebody?
Councilman Molina made the motion.
Ben made the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so there's been a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? I don't recall any public comment on this particular item. Well, this is all of them. So, all right. All in favor, well, you want to call the roll since we're in different rooms, make sure.
So this is for passage of the consent agenda with the exceptions of item 3 and 4, so it'd be 5 through 15. Mayor
Right.
McComb? Mayor McComb?
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry. Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Barrera? Aye. Garza?
Aye.
Guajardo?
Aye.
Hernandez?
Aye.
Enter?
Aye.
Molina?
Aye.
Molina?
Aye.
Okay, and Roy?
Aye.
Okay, the consent agenda passes.
okay, we pulled number 3, item number 4. Ms. Sanchez, you gonna present that one?
Yes, sir. The action before you today is threefold. First, you will be asked to approve an agreement between the Taipei Corporation and the City of Corpus Christi to transfer $500,000 from the Taipei Fund to the City Street Fund for arterial and collector work. This was approved by the Taipei Board on June the 8th. Second, you will be asked to approve a 380 agreement between the City of Corpus Christi and the United Corpus Christi Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $500,000 for the Chamber of Commerce to administer a utility assistance program for small businesses in Corpus Christi impacted by COVID-19. And third, you're being asked to appropriate the $500,000 from the unreserved fund balance of the Business and Job Development Fund and amending the budgets. The Type A Board held a special meeting on June the 8th to address this issue and unanimously voted to approve a $500,000 transfer to the city's street maintenance fund for arterial and collector work. Their action then freed up $500,000 from the general fund that can be used to administer this small business recovery grant to be administered by the United Chamber of Commerce of Corpus Christi. This program will help support small businesses experiencing significant financial hardships due to COVID-19 by providing a one-time $500 utility credit to qualified small businesses on their city utility bill. In addition, the Port of Corpus Christi this morning approved $250,000 for this program, and their piece will be to give a $500 cash award to these qualifying businesses for working capital purposes. And then the eligibility for this program will include, they must employ 3 to 20 full-time or part-time employees. They must have been in business for 12 months. Their annual gross revenue must not be more than $1 million. They must be located in Corpus Christi, and that's for the utility part. And for the ports part, it was Corpus Christi, San Patricio, and Nueces County. And they must demonstrate a loss of at least 25% of revenue in the period beginning March the 1st, 2020, as compared to the same time last year. We're also requiring that the businesses remain open for 3 months once they receive this grant award. And so approval of this item is being requested today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Zanoni, the other day we got our sales tax report for April, I believe. And it was pretty positive based on what our anticipation was, right?
Yes, it was, Mayor. Yeah, for April, and March was a little bit better than what we thought as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in that category, instead of being, I mean, your combination number, as I recall, was something between $6 and $12 million for the general fund, or that?
Yeah, on the sales tax, that was about the shortfall. That was,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So
For the entire general fund, it's as much as 21 million is what we're forecasting to be down. That includes our revenues at the landfill.
Mm-hmm.
okay. So this recommendation is to take $500,000 out of the street fund. It comes out of the general fund.
So the street fund is going to remain whole. It's $500,000 that general fund would have transferred to the street fund, but Type A instead transferred that money to the street fund.
But that's $500,000 less than that the Type A can come back to put into streets, in which the money was really originally generated for, right?
Or to put in economic development because it's Type A. Yes, sir. It could be streets. It could be any kind of economic development program.
And this is, I'm a small business person. And maybe, don't get me wrong, anybody give me $100, I'll take it. But if it's to keep my business open, $500 is not going to keep my business open. I mean, my utility bill to the city is $300 to $500, depending on how much water we use. But we're going to be using $500,000 that we all get comments all the time. We really do need our streets fixed. I mean, I'm torn between, my heart says, yeah, you want to help somebody with $500. But I'd like to hear some other comments. I just don't see us saving a business for $500. I'm sorry.
Can I just add that, so the ports piece this morning will be giving them $500 in cash. So in essence, they're receiving $1,000. And what was stated earlier today was that these small businesses, that'll give them a little breathing room while they're starting to reopen to be able to stay in business. $500 to some is a lot of money. So that was the thought, to help these small businesses stay in business and to help the economy of Corpus Christi.
Well, in the case of the program this one is proposing for the city, the business is not getting the $500.
Right, but it's $500 that they don't have to pay.
Credit.
Right. It's money that they don't
be-
have to dish out.
In other words, the city calls the chamber and says, ABC business owes me $450 this month. We want to charge it to this account, and we'll apply it to ABC businesses.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce is going to be taking applications for a certain time period. And so once that time period is closed, they're going to do a lottery and they're going to draw the names because they're anticipating quite a big draw for this program. And so once we have that, the city will get the list of names of the companies if they qualify, and then they will be getting a $500 credit on their utility bill. So that's one less bill that this small business would have to pay.
Don't get me wrong, $500 is $500, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm a small business person, but if I was down to where I was dependent upon a $500 deal, I think my doors would be shut pretty quick. I just don't understand, other than feel good. And we're taking $500,000 out of a fund that we all get emails and phone calls on, is Fix My Streets. And once it's gone, it's gone. I don't care how you slice it, how many shells you put the P under, at some point, it's gonna show up missing, that $500,000.
But what's interesting to think about, these businesses, if they do stay in business, they will be generating sales tax. So that would be generating more revenue that could be utilized for different purposes.
I don't argue that. I'm just thinking if you're down to your last $500, I'm not
I
sure
understand.
you're gonna be in generating revenue in the future. But I'm just sharing, I'm just being honest with you. I mean, you can make a decision with your head or you can make a decision with your heart. But, Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Mrs. Sanchez, you said March 1st is the determinant for the sales. What's the ending date? So what's the schedule? When is the lottery going to take place?
Well, the program.
The close of the program?
Right. If it's approved today, then we'll have to get with the Chamber of Commerce. Once we sign the 380 agreement, we'll determine the time period, and then they are going to be advertising it to the public to accept applications. So it will be very well known to the citizens of Corpus Christi when that time period is.
Okay, so I guess your sales are down 25%. We know the start date, but we don't know the end date then.
Because it's continuing, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I think to calculate the 25%, there ought to be an end date
Yes, sir.
on it. How many commercial accounts do we have in the city?
Well, businesses, we have about 1,600, but that's in small businesses within Nueces County. So those are the smaller businesses are the ones that we're targeting at this point for this program that have less than $1 million of revenue.
Okay, I guess my question is how many, so we believe we have 1,600 that would qualify
Yes, sir.
before the sales?
But that's in Nueces County, so say maybe 1,200, 1,300. It's hard to distinguish. We'll have to look at each application to see if their residence is truly in Corpus Christi, because I think the EDC was going by zip code.
Okay, but then they have to show a 25% reduction too.
Correct. Yes, sir, that's true.
So at a $500,000, that's 1,000 on
Correct.
there. So we may have less that apply for the lottery. And I think that's a good term to call it, a lottery.
So if the funds aren't dispersed within 6 months, and in the agreement, it says they need to be returned to the city, or this program will cease, and that will be it.
And of the less than 1,200, how many are delinquent right now?
That, I don't have that number off the top of my
Okay,
head.
we've got around 10,000 commercial accounts. Do we know our delinquencies there?
Yes, sir. But this could be for customers, though, that are not just necessarily delinquent. Maybe they're struggling. This will help them so they don't have to pay their city bill this month or next month. So they could use that money for other expenses.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Wartho?
Thank you. I think it's important to remember, and maybe, Mayor, you didn't know this. You kept saying, if you're down to your last 500, this isn't going to save you or keep that business from falling. This is to help a small business. And as a small business owner, myself prior and yourself now, and everyone pretty much almost sitting up here, I think that we've all been in situations in our businesses where you feel like, what am I going to do? And in Councilman Barrera's case, he went to Live Fund. And yes, those are larger amounts of money that can be loaned. But there are small business owners who can't afford to get a loan and to become more in debt. That's an apple, this is an orange. This is to assist, and I might add or emphasize, we have a partner here. The Port of Corpus Christi has said, yes, we want to help this program by giving $250,000, which is a lot of money. And yes, when you break it down to $500 to you, or it means something different to everyone. And we're looking at 3 to 20. I'm going to be very interested to see who are the people that we're truly going to help, because I like to call them small business, because a small business is, by government standards, is under 500 employees. That's not small in our world. Small is what you have, what I have, and what most everybody up here has. And so this also was created, Mayor, based on input from people, from business owners, and I think we heard some of that today. Any kind of credit helps. And again, as business owners, most of us up here have been in situations where I'll take an extra, knock off $100 from my phone, my cell phone bill, my light bill, whatever, because it's going to help reroute those dollars to pay someone or to continue a service or operational, things that you've got going on in the office. So I'd just like to remind everyone that this is not about bailing anyone out. This is about assisting our small business community, because they too pay into sales tax, and they too are part of this, a critical part of our community. And I think it's good to diversify the programs, what we've done so far, because not everybody, and not everyone will fall under this. This is a much smaller program, but not everyone will fall under the Live Fund. Not everybody will fall under this recovery program. Again, the point here is to help small businesses, and this is a small way to do that.
Okay. Mr. Roy?
I want to make sure I understand the way this program's going to work. They have to have a commercial account, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Okay, so that's one thing. So if you have somebody working out of their home as a consultant, that is a small business, you're not going to be paying their residential.
Not if it's in their personal name, no,
So
sir.
it's got to be a commercial account.
Correct.
And then the port, okay, so if I did the math right, you'll basically, for $500, can service 1,000 people. Is the port gonna, the 1,000 people that are selected, is the port going to give them an additional 250, or is that going to allow more people to apply?
So the port's amount is $500 as well, so they're only going to be able to help 500. And it's not just those in Corpus Christi, it's going to be those in the surrounding areas, including Nueces County and San Patricio County. So a person, or a business potentially could just get the $500 in cash if they're not in Corpus Christi, or if they are in Corpus Christi with a utility account, they could get both.
So you could get both?
Yes, sir.
I'm still in the heart of this whole PPP thing under the CARES Act, if everybody's not familiar with that, because, and I look at how much money we've given in the community through the PPP, which is a forgiveness program, if they do the paperwork right, and they abided by the rules. And the latest law that came down changed that from a 75-25 split to a 60-40 split. And then they expanded the program additional 24 weeks. So originally it was 8 weeks, and they expanded that. So now you could spend 60% of your payroll cost and 40% of your cost with utilities, rent, or whatever the case is, and have the entire thing forgiven. I don't remember offhand how many millions that we've given as a collective bank community here, but I can tell you right now, it's well into, I would estimate 300 million plus. It's just that large. So a lot of those individuals, they did have the ability to go through LIFT. They could go through the PPP. They could go through the economic, EIDL? Is that? And the EIDL program was anywhere from $1,000 up to. And depending on what that amount was, that can be forgiven also, or it can be paid back at really advantageous rates. So it's not like we haven't done, there hasn't been mechanisms in place to help small businesses. Matter of fact, I think this last 440 million or whatever they gave, I think it's still some money available, depending on who your lender is, if they've reached their lending limits. And now we're looking at the possibility of they can get another $1,000. Have we had any information? Because if we're, to the proof, I think, in what the mayor's talking about is how many commercial accounts have closed, just thrown in the rag, said, hey, I'm done. I can't survive this environment. So out of the number of accounts that you had open prior to COVID-19, how many of them are in arrears, or how many of them just closed and thrown in the rag?
We'll have to get
The
that
towel.
number for you. But I know in the newspaper week before last on Saturday, the headlines was that the small businesses, the mom and pops here in Corpus Christi, are the ones that are hurting the most. They're trying to reopen. They just need a little boost. And so that's why this program seems like it'll be ideal for that size of person. Perhaps they aren't as sophisticated enough to apply for the PPP. Maybe they don't have a relationship with the banker.
Well, you probably need a CPA also, because it was pretty complicated.
Right, and I believe the forgiveness paperwork is complicated as well, even though it's just a couple pages. But
It is.
But this is targeting more the mom and pops type businesses here in town.
But you don't really have an idea in terms of how many commercial accounts that
We could get
are
that
in
for you.
arrears. Irregardless of the outcome of this, I think that would be good
Sure.
information to know. If we started out with 1,200 accounts.
In
and-
March, and now it's,
Right.
yeah, sure.
And now if somebody just decides not to pay you, they probably don't call in and say, look, we're going out of business. Too bad, I'm sorry. Stand in line.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Mr. Barrera?
How did we come to the criteria of, they have to employ 3 people, or they have to be 3?
Right.
Okay. I remember the days, I have this joke that, 24 years ago now, I was waiting for the phone to ring, and now I don't want to answer it, and part of that is I remember before direct deposit, I'd go to the post office box every day, and if I got a check for $20, it was a good day. And but the thing was, and then I had a little small office. I was actually leasing space out of an AC contractor's office, and I guess that's the thing, though. It was just me. And I remember those days, and that's one of the things I'd say. If you really want to target the mom and pops, then I'd bring it down to maybe 1. And if some of that one person has a commercial account, once again, it could be, a plumber that has to rent a shop, an AC contractor that has to rent a shop, because that AC contractor has to think twice before he's going out into somebody's house. He may have let go of his employees. And, I've dealt with a lot of those people before where, you know, it was an unfortunate market that I moved away from, that they didn't have health insurance because of the fact that they were basically dealing with everything on a cash flow issue. So, you know, I understand. I see where everybody else is coming from, but I think once again, if you really want to dial it down, because in this case, $750, I think having a requirement of 3 employees is way too much, and I don't know if I have to make that an amendment,
Yes, you can amend
or
that, yes, sir.
you know. So did you have another comment? Because I was going to make a motion.
Sure.
Councilmember Barrera brings up a very good point, because when you're a small business, a lot of times you can't W-2 somebody. So, because you don't have enough work to be consistent.
Sure.
So then what they do is they 1099 them, and that opens up, and that's been the biggest problem with the PPP loans.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the small companies that needed help, they only 1099 there, and so then what happened, they had to take their Schedule C and they had to do it on their own, and that was a disaster. And so I understand, and I almost think that you ought to eliminate that
The number of
requirement,
employees.
The number of employees, if you're a commercial
Or at least
accountant.
no more than.
Because
I
they
put a
could,
cap on it, but not every.
their 2 employees could be 1099.
Sure.
And then you get into that whole thing, well, are they really your employees? They're independent. They could work for multiple people.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, any other comment?
Is that in the ordinance
need to make
itself,
an
Ms. Sanchez?
Okay.
Pardon
Is
me?
that in the ordinance itself?
It's in the
the
380
number?
agreement, I
In the
believe.
agreement.
So
Okay,
we
so-
would
The
have to,
ordinance would need to be amended. It's the agreement, correct?
Yes.
That would need to be amended.
So,
I
so,
think it's in Exhibit A. We would have to just change that to up to 20 employees.
I mean, that's fine. So I have to make a motion indicating such if I want to do so?
Yes, but we won't actually have to amend the ordinance, but make a motion to amend the 380, I guess.
Okay,
to
I would
include
make
what
a
you're talking
motion
about.
to amend the 380 to reduce it to, I guess, would that be 1 or 0? 1?
Up to
or-
20?
One,
Yeah, just up to 20 employees?
Up to 20 employees, yeah,
Right.
that's it.
okay, second.
All right. And then, I don't see any other lights here. And then the Chamber of Commerce, for the administration of this, is gonna get a 5% fee. Right?
Yes.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Okay, any other discussions? Well, I would like, I mean, we can go ahead and take action on it today, but I think it would be a good, and is the funding out of this one, really, there's no cash to the owner for this program. It's simply a credit toward his utility bill.
That's correct.
And that will, I guess the chamber, that's part of their responsibility for the administration is to identify who those are.
And send them to the city. That's correct. And we're giving a 6-month time period for the funds to be, the credits to be given.
Okay. And so is the credit just on the amount of the bill due, or is it the
The-
current bill? In other words, if they've got 2 or 3 months in arrears, if it helped clean out that and give them a little fresh breath of air,
So the way it's currently structured, the $500 will go on their utility account. So if they
just
have.
go on the utility
Yes,
account,
sir.
period.
Yes,
To
sir.
cover whether current or
Yes, sir.
past.
That's correct.
Okay.
So
And it's 500, yes,
Yeah.
up to 500, and that's it. They can't apply more than once.
Right.
But just
But they could take,
500.
Yeah,
they could take 500 from the port and apply it to that, or they could take the 500 from the port and go to Whataburger and get them a lunch, right? They could. I mean, it's cash. Yes.
The ports is cash,
It's
ours
cash.
is not.
That's right.
Yes,
That's exactly right.
it's, yeah.
Huh? Well, I mean, it just goes to the company to spend the way they want to, that's what I'm saying. It's just, I don't know what the accountability is on the,
We can't speak
we're
for
not,
that.
we're
Yeah.
not,
Yeah, we
we're
can't
not
speak for
asking for
Are
the
you on the
accounting of
mic,
what the
Ms.
port's
Right.
$250,000. I don't know what they're asking for. None of our business. But it's cash versus credit.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then at the end of the period, well, actually, in the 6 months. So if, I mean, if you've got 1,000, you say 1,600 commercial accounts?
But that, yeah, within,
At 500 apiece, that'll wipe it out pretty quick if they all apply. So, I mean, it could be over in 30 days. At the end of the 6 month, though, if there's money left over, it goes back to the type A?
yes, sir. It'll come back through the city through type A, yes, sir.
Okay. We know there'll be $25,000 gone because the chamber will get theirs. They'll take theirs first. If I were the chamber, I would. But it would be interesting, just for information, just to find out how these mom and pop and these small businesses are. I would suspect most of them are doing everything they can to meet their utility bills and be responsible business people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some bills that you put off and there's some bills you pay, and usually it's utilities and your electricity you pay. You let everybody else hold it for a while, but you pay what you have to. And if you can't, then, you know, there's times you're late. I've been there more than once. But I understand. Okay, is there a motion then to approve?
Well, Mayor, there was actually a motion and a second to amend the 380 prior to actually voting on the ordinance. So that's on the floor right now.
All right, then, is there any other discussion on the motion to amend?
And it was to bring it, the
Reducing the
total
number
down
of
to 20
employees from-
people, up to 20 employees.
From 1 to 20 instead of 3 to 20, is that correct?
Well, just up to
From
20.
Up to 20,
Up to 20 employees in
1
the
to
380
20.
agreement.
Up
Well, I mean, here,
Or 30, what was it?
He's going to clarify his motion.
No, you wanted to drop it from 3 to 1.
Can you turn your mic on, Mr. Barrera?
Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
pressed the wrong button. The individual that cuts my hair is another good example. They lease out all their chairs, and if those people don't come in, and she does a Schedule C, so she's not a W-2 employee, so that's why I say up to. She in essence has 0 employees, you know, and but she's still got to pay the utilities because she's got to have water going for when they do that, so.
Well, you need another haircut. Go get one.
You're right about that.
But you're changing it from the 3 to 1 employee.
The 3, well, up to
It's up to
20.
20.
Because let's say, for example,
makes a difference.
as a sole proprietor, I mean, as long as you count that sole proprietor, that's all I care about. That's the language. So up to. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and if it's a self, in other words, they're not writing another W-2 employee.
All right, so how, I mean.
Up to 20,
Up to
that's
20.
all. That's all the language we need.
Must employ, you drop the between
Just say
3, you just say must employ
up to
Up to-
20.
no more than up to
No
20.
more than
no
20.
more than 20.
No
Yeah.
more than, yeah. Yeah, no more than, yeah.
Yeah, no more than 20.
You drop the between, must employ no more than 20 full-time or part-time employees or equivalent. Is that what you're wanting?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's the you got that, Ms. Huerta?
Yes.
All right, then the motion on the floor is to change, the eligibility program includes the following to read, must employ no more than 20 full-time or part-time employees or equivalent at business locations, more than one, in Corpus Christi. Any further discussion? All in favor say, I'll call the roll.
Okay, so for passage of the motion to amend the 380 agreement, Mayor McComb,
Aye.
Councilmembers Smith,
Aye.
Barrera, Garza,
Aye.
Guajardo,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Molina,
Aye.
and Roy.
Aye.
Okay, the motion to amend passes.
Okay, now there's a,
Motion to
To approve the ordinance
approve
as
as
presented.
amended. I make a motion to approve as amended.
Well, it's presented. We didn't amend the ordinance. We amended the 380.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
all right, there's a motion to approve agenda item 3 as amended, is that the correct?
It's
motion?
item 4, Mayor.
It's number 4.
What
And it's
the
as
item?
presented.
Item 4, I mean, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Right, on emergency reading. Yeah, we amended the 380 agreement. The portion that you were reading wasn't actually in the ordinance, it was in the 380.
The motion to approve as presented is what I meant.
Yes. So that's Ms. Fajardo made a motion. Is there a second? Second. Mr.
All right.
Barrera?
All right, so the motion is to approve item 4 as amended,
Well, it says presented.
as presented.
Yeah, because the amendment we made was to the 380 agreement. this is an ordinance, right? So,
Well, you've got to get the ordinance.
Yeah,
So we're
the
gonna have
ordinance
to amend the 380
authorizes-
agreement. Have we amended the 380 agreement?
we did. So now the ordinance authorizes a 380 agreement, and that's all that needs to happen. We're just acting on it. The change we made was just to the 380 agreement, not to the ordinance itself. That portion's not mentioned in the ordinance. Right, exactly.
All right,
Yes, sir.
so what you're showing me here in the ordinance, that's just the language of the ordinance.
Right, yeah, the
But does
ordinance, my understanding
But
is.
the ordinance, that language was changed in the ordinance by the amending the 380 agreement.
Right, it was in the 380, that's right.
Is it in the ordinance, though?
I asked that question, Ms. Sanchez said no, and what we amended was the 380 agreement.
So the only reference to the number of employees is in the 380 agreement.
Yes, sir,
That's
that's
right.
correct. The ordinance makes
Well,
mention of
that's
the
what I
three.
want to make sure you got consistency between
Yes,
the
sir.
two.
No, that's, thank you for clarifying. It's good
Yeah.
for everyone to know what we're voting on, so
The ordinance
that's
says
important.
approval of the 380 agreement, but it doesn't specify those details. But the 380 agreement has that number of employees in it in
All right.
Exhibit A.
So the motion, again, is as presented.
Yes, sir. Right, it's on an emergency reading, one reading.
All right,
So
and there's a second on the motion.
we have a motion and a second. Ms. Fajardo made the motion, Mr. Barrera seconded.
All right, we'll call the roll then, please.
Okay, so for passage of ordinance number 4 on emergency, Mayor McComb,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Barrera. Aye. Garza,
Aye.
Fajardo,
Aye.
Hernandez,
Aye.
Hunter,
Aye.
Molina,
Aye.
and Roy. The ordinance passes.
All right, item number 5. Well, we've already passed that one up. We're down to, let's get back to my agenda here. We did everything down to 15, right?
Yes, Mayor, we did.
All right, first reading of items 18, 19, and 20. It's an ordinance for,
Well, we have, are you skipping the public hearings?
huh?
Yeah, we have public hearings 16 and 17. It's a few minutes
Oh,
before lunch,
okay, I
but we
did.
didn't get
Yeah,
public
I
comment on
I saw
those.
15 and then I jumped the page. I did, excuse me. Public hearing on item 16 is a zoning case. Who's presenting that?
Al Raymond.
I am Mayor and Council. Al Raymond, I'm sorry, yeah, thank you very much. Al Raymond Development Services. The case before you is to rezone property located at 7001 Williams Drive from RS6 Single Family 6 District to CN1 Neighborhood Commercial District. The purpose is to allow for the construction of medical offices. The applicant is the Covenant Baptist Church, represented by the Clower Company. Next slide, please. The property here is located along south side of Williams Drive, east of Nile Drive, and west of Rodfield Road. Property primarily fronts along Williams Drive, which is designated as a C3 primary collector street. To the north across Williams Drive is Bay Area Hospital and Medical Center, which is zoned CG2 General Commercial District. To the south are large tract single-family homes, zone RS6, single-family District 6. To the east is vacant property and a medical office zone, CN1 neighborhood commercial. And to the west are traditional single-family homes, zoned RS6, single-family District 6. The property is 2.75 acres in size, and it is platted. Next slide, please. The proposed rezoning to CN1 is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan, compatible with the surrounding properties, and it does not pose a negative impact on the surrounding area. Next slide, please. Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of CN1 Neighborhood Commercial District.
Motion to approve.
Oh, just for the record,
Councilor
this is a
Hernandez.
public hearing. We've not received any public comments.
I don't see any name, just, can you go back back the slides up to 1 or 2 and I'll tell you when to stop. I'm a little confused on what I saw versus what I think I saw. Anybody back there running the slide machine. Back up one more. All right, whoa, right there. Okay, all right. I looked and saw Rodfield Road, and I was looking at the big red chunk, and it's the blue chunk that we're talking about on that slide. That's the property under consideration. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I quickly assumed that Rodfield Road, and then I realized that. Okay, my mistake. All right, entertain a motion then,
I submit a motion to approve the Councilman
Second.
Hernandez.
all right, Councilman Hernandez made a motion, Mr. Smith second.
Second.
Molina seconds.
I'm sorry, I heard Mr. Smith second, but,
Okay.
Either one.
okay, thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Number 17, sir.
Any further discussion? I don't think we had any written comment on.
No, sir, just I just mentioned that, so we can open and
All right,
close
we
the
gotta
public
open the
hearing
we
without.
gotta open the public hearing or just
Well,
a
you
zoning
can just
case?
mention, open the public hearing, no public comments received, and close it.
All right, we'll open the public hearing on item number
Easy one.
16. And we didn't receive any comments.
Right.
And we don't have any here, so we'll close the public hearing. Ms. Worth, you want to call the roll on the
Yes, sir.
motion for approval?
Yes, sir, so for passage of ordinance number 16 on its first reading, Mayor McComb.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith. Barrera. Garza.
Aye.
Guajardo.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Hunter.
Aye.
Molina.
Aye.
And Roy. The ordinance passes.
All right, item 17 is an ordinance for developer participation. Who's going to do that one?
I am Mayor Al Raymond, Director of Development Services. Mayor and Council, the ordinance before you is to execute a developer participation agreement and several trust fund reimbursement agreements for MPM Homes LP for the installation of 16-inch and 12-inch water grid main lines, an 8-inch water distribution line, an 18-inch sanitary sewer trunk main line, and a 12-inch sanitary sewer collection line. This ordinance appropriates $874,000 from the Water Operating Fund, which is the participation agreement. It appropriates $154,126 from the Water Transmission and Grid Main Fund. It appropriates $16,673 from the Water Distribution Main Fund. It appropriates $75,706 from the Sanitary Sewer Trunk Main Fund, and it appropriates $45,607 from the Sanitary Sewer Collection Line Fund to reimburse the developer for the work described above. The totals for the participation and the reimbursement agreement is $1,166,113.78. Next slide, please. This is a view of the proposed subdivision. The subdivision is located along, it's Kings Landing, sorry, the name is Kings Landing. It's located along FM 43, west of County Road 33. The property here is 446 acres in size. It had a preliminary plat that was approved by the Planning Commission on October 6, 2019. The property is zoned RS 4.5 and CN1. It has a proposed build-out of 1,450 residential single-family homes, along with several commercial businesses and a church. The property is located within the city limits, and it's in the London Independent School District. Next slide, please. This layout shows the water and wastewater utility infrastructure improvements. To the lower half of this exhibit, the dark blue line represents the 16-inch water grid main line, which starts at FM 43, goes north, if you will, makes a right-hand turn going east all the way to County Road 33. That's 5,000 665 linear feet. There's 376 linear feet of 12-inch water grid main line, which is the north, kind of north at the elbow of that blue exhibit. There's 356 linear feet of 8-inch water distribution main, which is the upper light, if you will, light blue at the top of the exhibit going east and west. There's 356 linear feet of 18-inch wastewater trunk main line, which is also that east and west darker blue, if you will. And there's 1,682 linear feet of 12-inch wastewater collection line, which is the yellow line that starts east-west and goes north-south. The installation of this water and wastewater utility extends services to the planned residential subdivision and also to adjacent properties, of course. The proposed 18-inch wastewater trunk main and 16-inch and 12-inch water grid mains are in accordance with the wastewater and water master plans respectively. Next slide, please. Staff recommends approval, and I stand by for any questions.
Anybody got any questions?
Yes, this is Councilman Hernandez. Question on this. The Water Department is providing $874,000 for the required oversizing of the water line to 16 inches. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You know, and I know we discussed this a little bit, but why didn't we do this out on the island with the forced main, and where the wastewater department could have provided some funding for that instead of getting it all from the trust fund? It seems like this is a very similar scenario.
That's a great question, Councilman. I really can't respond to that. I wasn't here, so I can't really respond to that.
You want to try?
Yeah, please, if you.
Mayor, council members, city staff, Mike Johnston, Development Services. On this one, Councilman, initially it was a 12-inch line, and then in order to complete the grid main line, it runs down County Road 33 to connect to County Road to FM 43 to finish the loop that was being halfway completed by another project. The developer was approached by Utilities Department at Water Utilities to help them extend this line. Initially, that line was only a 12-inch line that went north in the subdivision. So all of that western work, or the east-west work, and then the oversizing to a 16 was brought on at the request of the Utilities Department to assist the installation of the line instead of going to a CIP project. Since the developer was already there, already had the right-of-way basically open, he agreed to do that. And then we found the shortage in funding and requested that, since it was in the city-initiated request, to see if it could be covered. And going back to the last summer with the Bali project, the IGA, that big 18-inch gravity line, the trust fund had a lot of money in it at the time. I was relatively new on staff. It never really occurred that it wasn't done like that, for lack of a better term. So different scope of project. This was a city-initiated master plan amendment, adding 3,700 linear feet to what was on the plan, and we just didn't think it was right for the trust fund to absorb that funding and or delay this developer's project, something that the city was required to do anyway.
Okay, well, that's kind of similar to the same thing on the island. They could have done a smaller project and connected to a different line with a smaller line. We're basically asking them basically the same thing. Is there any possibility the wastewater can help participate to replenish the trust fund in a way? Because, I mean, we had to do some finagling to pay for the lift station here just recently, a couple of weeks ago. We had to move funds from one trust fund to another. Is there any way we can go back and see if that can be
Mayor,
worked on?
that's a separate
based on how
issue,
we're doing
Ken.
this?
That's a separate issue, Ken. I mean, I although I agree with him, I just think it's not pertinent to this because he's bringing up another example of how this is. I mean, with all due respect, Councilman, I get you. It's just not relevant to this issue here, other than it's relevant to to prove your
Well, it's
point,
it's
but
tied
it's
to
not
it.
for approval here.
I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but let's see if we can revisit this at a later time, to say that we want to look at this. If we have to, we'll ask a couple of council members to put it on the agenda, and to discuss it further. But, with regards to this, I agree with it. So, if anybody doesn't have any other comments, I can make a motion.
Okay, and just public hearing, no comments received.
This is item
I'm sorry, I missed
17.
that.
For 17, I was just, for the record, this is a public hearing and no public comments were received.
All right, so we'll open the public hearing on the written part of the comments that we didn't receive any. There's no public comments, so we'll close the public hearing.
And for the record, Mr. Roy is abstaining also.
Excuse me?
Mr. Roy is abstaining also, just so you know.
Oh, Mr. Roy is abstaining?
Yes, sir.
All right. Just curiosity, and I don't know whether we can get this on a quarterly basis or something. I mean, we've had on, I guess, several of our last council meetings, several of these trust fund reimbursement projects. There's a lot of development going on. Right. Can we get an update on kind of where the balance is or where we stand with our trust funds and all of those?
Yes, we can, Mayor. We can send you something in a memo, but.
That'd be good.
Al, last time we're pretty much broke on them.
I was gonna say, this may be the last hurrah for the trust funds for a
Yeah,
while.
the trust funds are pretty much depleted, right, Al? You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Peter. It is low. After we, if this is approved by council today, there will be a total of approximately $150,000 in the trust funds collectively.
And all of them, yeah. But we'll get you a detailed memo showing
Yeah,
that.
'cause
150,000 left.
I was assuming that, you know, that loud sucking sound I heard going, it sounded like it just draining the trust fund, and that was correct, so.
Yeah.
I guess they'll be advised in the future that if they're looking for trust funds, they're gonna have to look a little harder.
We're paying out of utilities.
All right. All right, there's a motion and a second on item 17, and there's, right?
Who made the motion?
Councilman Hernandez?
Okay. And second was, thank you, Mr. Barretta.
Second.
So second, Mr. Barretta, actually, out here, Mr. Garza, but thank you.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second on item 17. Any further discussion? All right, you want to call the roll?
Yes, sir. So for passage of ordinance 17 on its first reading, Mayor McComb.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Barrera. Garza.
Aye.
Guajardo. Hernandez.
Aye.
Hunter.
Aye.
Molina.
Aye.
And Roy abstains. The ordinance passes.
Okay, well, it's 1:30. Do we want to,
Yeah, we could take a lunch break, Mayor. We have a few regular agenda items that we could tackle.
we don't have
after.
well, we do have an executive session. Do we want to deal with that during the lunch?
Yes, we can. It's a short executive session during lunch, and then.
Well, let me make sure here, Ms. Huerta, where's my,
Something to eat.
keep me legal. All right, we're gonna go, the council will go into executive session on item 21. Per the Texas Government Code, section 551.074, and item 21 for the public, if they don't have that information, is executive session, personnel matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, or discipline of the city auditor. So, you're the chairman of the audit committee. All right, we'll go into closed executive session and have lunch and have this item discussed, and we shall return.
subsequent to that, we put together an RFQ document and published that. Put together a panel to evaluate those. We only had one respondent. We went ahead and conducted interviews with that respondent, and we feel that they are well qualified to conduct this work. And this item is to approve a contract with that firm, Lockwood, Andrews, and Newnham, and we call them by their acronym LAN. I have on the phone, or I had on the WebEx, if they're still with us, Steve Gilbreth and Scott Harris with LAN, if we want to direct any questions to them. Next slide. I think everybody knows this is located on North Beach. Next slide. The canal is conceived to exist largely in the right-of-way between Timon and Surfside, and on the south end, partly in the right-of-way that's going to be vacated with the demolition of the existing Harbor Bridge. And there's also some connections at Breakwater, and then out to the north to provide circulation. And the main navigation inlet was proposed to be at Breaker Avenue. Next. These are two images from the urban engineering report that were included in the ordinance. This is a cross-section of a navigable canal, and then the other image is kind of an overview of the project limits, horizontal limits, that was also included as an exhibit to that ordinance. Okay, next slide. So the scope of this first phase of work is to answer some fundamental questions about this project. Basically, what is it? What is the project scope? What are the project limits? And what are the benefits it's going to provide? Will it work to help the drainage situation? And what are the technical and regulatory obstacles that need to be addressed with a project design? They're anticipating that we need 6 months to complete this first phase of work, which should take us towards the end of the calendar year. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll open up the floor to any questions.
Mr. Roy?
First of all, thank you for the update. This is probably, while I'm running around the district and the area, especially in North Beach, probably the number one question a lot of people ask are where are we at with the North Beach project. And I'm glad that we're able to come forward, do this presentation to show that we are continuing to move in that direction, continuing to do the things that we said that we would that we had outlined before in terms of this project. And I think this design phase is very important. And that's more than anything. Again, I just want to make sure that any of the constituents in District 1 understand that we're committed to going forward, as we said. So again, I want to thank the city manager and your staff. We look forward to being able to get the results and take the next step, which would be phase 2. So thank you.
Mr. Barrera?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I just have, what if, what happens, I guess Peter or Jeff, if during the course of their process of their review, they recognize, they feel that a canal is probably not the best, the best course of action.
And we'll come to this, we'll bring that policy recommendation to the city council and see how the board, the body wants to move forward. The contract's designed to do that, is to ask a couple of questions and get us professional information back to the city and the city council. So one, what is it? You may not like the design after they say, you know what, this is how you're gonna have to get in the canal, this is how you'll get out. Or they may say, you know what, the drainage is not, it's not gonna help the stormwater or the tidal flooding as much as we thought. Or It won't be navigable. It could be a whole series of things. And on the positive side, it could be a lot of good reporting as well.
Yeah.
So either way, we'll be back to the board here, to the city council, to see how to proceed. The continual work, Councilman Roy mentioned phase 2, that will be done with this contractor. We don't have to go back out for another RFP. LAN will be used here on out until we complete this part of the analysis. So this has 2 big questions that get answered, and those results we'll bring to the council to see how does the body want to proceed forward, the full city council.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Roy?
I just wanted to expound on that I just want to remind everybody, because we haven't really talked about this, the North Beach Canal in quite some time. But just to remind everybody, especially the public that's listening, that this was a project that was put in place because first and foremost, our concern was flooding. And so the findings that we hopefully will get from this, we'll learn some things, we'll have a better idea, and make sure that we do the right thing for our taxpayers and everyone that's involved in the future, and do the right thing. So again, I'm looking forward to this.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds, this is a fair-size engineering contract. Can you give us some color on why we only had one firm propose to it?
I would really just be speculating. It was advertised the way that we normally advertise, and we gave them the amount of time that they normally have to develop their statement of qualifications, and then just had this one respondent.
Okay.
We did. Can I add to that too, Councilman, that as we customarily do, we had a pre-bid conference, meaning whoever might be interested in bidding can come to hear a presentation. And we had about six to eight firms there, Jeff, I think.
Yeah, we did have quite good attendance at that.
Yeah, and we even scheduled and conducted a tour of the peninsula. We took them along what could be the project limits, and a good 5 or so firms joined us in that bus trip. So we were a little surprised when only one submitted a proposal. It may be because of the challenge of the project, the challenging nature of it, we're not sure. But the committee that interviewed the one firm, the LAN, and read their written proposal, were pleased with their credentials and their approach to the project. We'd like the team that's on the phone today with us. In fact, we work with them to refine the scope of work that we're bringing forward to you today. And they worked in an expedient manner and understood what we were saying, which is good. There was good, clear communication between both parties. So we think we can work real well with this firm. We think they're qualified.
And LAN has a good presence here in Corpus Christi?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're confident with them.
Any other comments? Go ahead.
Yes, question in the back here.
Mr.
In your presentation, you had some outlined items for the scope of the project, but that was not in the Exhibit A of the scope. Is there a reason why there's a difference there?
Could you repeat the question?
Okay, in your presentation, you outlined some bullet points for the scope of the project, but that's not really delineated in Exhibit A of the agreement or the contract for
Well, I think what we're doing is sort of paraphrasing, but those items are covered in their proposal. So,
Just a second, Councilman, if you're referring to Exhibit A on 725, page 725.
Yeah, 4.2 scope of work, Exhibit A.
Yeah, that page is from the RFP that was put out. So that Exhibit A is not exhibit to the contract. I'm not sure how that's in there. That was the scope of services that we looked for when we put the RFP out.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just put that in for
It's
reference.
not part of the contract. The contract's everything prior to there, 712 through, looks like 700.
Well, you also have Exhibit A1 that is the proposal from LAN. The other question I have is why was this separated into 2 phases? Because if you're going to use the same contract, I'm assuming the second phase is going to have some cost to it. will we see that amendment to that cost, or is this going to be just something that you're going to approve on your end?
No, I think this would be a large amendment, and the first phase is going to inform on the second phase. It's very difficult. If we give them a go decision to design this, at this point, they don't have enough information to really scope that out and price that out. So we've got to go through this sort of feasibility study phase to be able to get to the point that we can come up with an accurate scope for the second phase work.
So you're looking to do a feasibility study here to determine whether or not there's a project, you can do a cost estimate on the project? Wouldn't it be simple enough to kind of do that at the same time?
Can I add to that, for Jeff? So this, I wouldn't refer to this as a feasibility study. This is more of a design, it's a design phasing. And we know it's more a design. We're trying to figure out what is the project, have the firm confirm for the city council based on our direction, what is the contract, what is the project? And then secondly, will it work as we think it might work? So those two big questions get answered first, then we come back to city council with a phase 2 and an increased scope of work and an increased cost. The staff, we're recommending that we do this incrementally rather than having a contract value that could be 2 or 3 times as great as what we're recommending today when there's still a lot of unknowns. We take it kind of one step at a time and have these 2 questions answered, bring the results back to the city council to see how you want to proceed. We'll give you a recommendation as well, a professional recommendation. So we plan to come back, as Jeff said, there won't be an administrative amendment to the contract, but rather one that the staff will evaluate and give a recommendation to council. It's fiscally prudent in those terms, and we still are committed to moving forward.
Okay, so the reason I asked this is because, Jeff, you had mentioned that you were giving them 6 months to complete this contract. That puts it into the next city council. If there are no, I'm assuming this would come back in January. Is there a possibility they can finish this, complete this before that 6 months and have it come back before, like maybe in November?
I don't know if the firm wants to answer, they're on the phone, but.
This is Steve Gelbreath with LAN. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mayor and council members, thank you. We do have a pretty aggressive schedule with the 6 months. You know, it's in everybody's benefit to you know, finish it quicker. But we did scale it back a little bit when we were negotiating the contract. I don't want to commit that we can finish it, you know, a month or 2 months earlier. But at this point, you know, we can look for opportunities to do that. But you know, I think by the time we have some planned workshops and things like that, the 6 months seems the most reasonable, but we will look at that with Jeff and others.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Wartho?
Thank you. Mr. Edmonds, my question's regarding the funds. And I'm wondering, so is this something that's going to be reimbursed by the TERS? Or doesn't this, no?
No, the TERS isn't going to pay for this. This is
It
coming.
never was, or can you remind us how that?
So we had, last year in October, November, December timeframe or so, we told the council we would identify funds if we wanted to proceed with some type of a contract like this. So in kind of scrubbing the budget, we looked, the best source of money was some interest earnings in our utility funds, in our stormwater utility funds, some prior projects and prior revenue bonds had accrued interest earnings. And so we recommended to use that for a next step study. And so that's what this would be. The price tag for this today is a little over 500,000. So there's not even enough. The TERS only we saw earlier today.
Well, but that's why I said reimbursed.
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah.
So moving forward, where would, I mean, the funds are, what do we?
Well, that's, yeah, right. So remember the ordinance council passed said that the Navajo Canal that you all approved would be a $41.5 million price tag. And we have not identified where that money would come from, nor do we have any
Or phase two of this, I guess.
Phase two, well, we still, so the identified dollars were around $1 million. And so this uses about half of them. And so we still have half in reserve for phase two.
And the, okay. So the drainage, those grants that the county is looking into, would that?
That would be a different aspect of the redevelopment of the peninsula, including most notably a breakwater system. That's what the grant would be used for, some type of a breakwater.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one of the alternatives for some breakwater to minimize the velocity of the
That's
storm.
what that's for.
Right, that's what those grants would be used for.
Well, I thought she mentioned drainage, though.
So the county applied for additional grants for a watershed study in Nueces County that the city is recommending as well. And that would help in the drainage system that we have to develop. But that grant would determine and analyze the two big watersheds that exist in Nueces County. That's what that grant would be used for.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
Mayor, I'd like to say something.
It's Michael, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I just want to commend the city manager and sharp-dressed man, Jeff Edmonds, for continuing to work on this. So thank you all very much.
Okay, any other comments? Entertain a motion to pass, start this.
Like to make a motion?
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second on item 18?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and second on item 18 to engage Lockwood, Andrews, and Newman for $508,988 on phase one to answer the question, is a navigable canal there, and will it solve the drainage problem? That's the goal of the study, right? All right, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Was there any written comment on this one that's submitted on this agenda?
No, sir.
No written? All right, no comment, public comment on this one then. I don't hear any. Ms. Guajardo, your light's still on, or is that a new light? Okay. No new lights are on, then call the roll, please, on item 18.
So for passage of ordinance 18 on its first reading, Mayor McComb?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Barrera? Garza?
Aye.
Guajardo? Hernandez?
Aye.
Hunter? Mr.
Aye.
Okay, Hunter. Molina?
Aye.
And Roy?
Aye.
The ordinance passes.
Okay, item number 19, Ms. Huerta.
Yes, sir. So this is an ordinance, City Secretary Rebecca Huerta. This is an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances to codify the Municipal Court Committee. So as y'all probably are aware, we completed phase 2 of our boarding committee review process in March. And as part of that process, one of the policies that we passed was that all committees would be created by, all council boards, committees, and task forces would be created by resolution or ordinance. So we have this municipal court committee, and like the audit committee, it's appointed by the mayor at the beginning of each council term. But unlike the audit committee, the duties and responsibilities of the committee have not been codified. So the purpose of this ordinance is to codify that committee. Are there any questions?
Mr. Garza, you're the chairman of the committee. You have any questions? Are you okay with this?
All right, I think this is a step we have to take right now. At some point, we've got to discuss future business of the municipal court. We'll do that at a later time.
All right. But you're in support of this recommendation by the city secretary?
I am, Mayor.
All right, you'd like to make a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and second on item
19, Mayor.
19, to codify the municipal court committee, and the group's been doing a great job, even though they haven't been codified. They may be old codgers, but they're not codified, but they are now, if we pass it. Oh, are you on that committee, Paulette? Excuse me.
Yes, I am.
All right, Ms. Worthing, you want to call the roll?
Yes, sir. So for passage of ordinance number 19 on its first reading, Mayor McComb.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith. Barrera. Garza.
Aye.
Guajardo. Hernandez.
Aye.
Hunter.
Aye.
Molina.
Aye.
And Roy.
Aye.
The ordinance passes.
All right, item number 20 is an ordinance abandoning and vacating 1,502 square feet, 5 foot wide by approximately 300 feet out of the Ocean Drive lots on Ocean Drive, so somebody can sell their house. Who's gonna make that presentation?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Al Raymond, Development Services. The easement closure, this ordinance before you is for an easement closure at 5601 Ocean Drive. The purpose of this ordinance is to abandon and vacate a 5 foot wide by approximately 300 foot long utility easement in order to facilitate property subdivisions and future sale. Next slide, please. This is an overview of the site. The property is located at the intersection of Ocean Drive and Claremont Street. Next slide, please. The closure of the public utility easement is being requested by the owner, the estate of Annie Blake Morgan Head, to facilitate the future property subdivision and sale. The property is zoned RE, which is a residential estate, and it is within the Corpus Christi Independent School District. There are no utilities located in the subject easement. Next slide, please. Staff recommends approval. I stand by for any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody from the public have any questions on item 21? I mean, item 20? If not, entertain a motion for approval of item 20.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second on item 20. You have any other comment, Mr. Manager? No comment. All right, all in favor, call the roll, Ms. Worthing.
For passage of ordinance number 20 on its first reading, Mayor McComb.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Barrera. Garza.
Aye.
Guajardo. Hernandez.
Aye.
Hunter.
Aye.
Molina.
Aye.
And Roy. The ordinance passes.
Okay, identify future agenda items. Anybody have any suggestions?
Congratulations to Councilman Garza on his anniversary.
Oh, that's right, today's his anniversary. Don't anybody call his wife and tell him we're getting out early.
Hey, congratulate my wife. She's got to put up with me.
Yeah, she's going to heaven.
All right, on future agenda items, just one, Mr. Zanoni, on that item 3 today on the nonprofits.
Right.
Since we've got a little time, just for information purposes, could we check and see, as I read the information, any monies that we give obviously would be given to the organizations have to be in the city of Corpus Christi, even though it's the United Way, then they serve
Right.
5
Yeah,
or 6 counties surrounding us, 10 or 12 counties.
Right.
But the money, since it's tax money, has to be spent in the city of Corpus Christi.
That's correct. Only within the city limits. Right.
And then I'd also like to check, just, I think it'd be good public information, is that from what I understand, up to date, just kind of get a report on what's the health of the nonprofits in the community. They have been inundated, I'm sure, with requests for help, but they have also been bombarded with funds on the state and national level to the tune, from what I understand, $35 to $38 million is what these nonprofits have been given in the last 3 months.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, they could be awash in money, particularly if they're restricted like we are if the funds have to be COVID-related. And I don't know how you make that definition for a nonprofit helping people. I mean, I can make the argument that they don't have food because they don't have a job because of COVID. I'd make that a COVID-related deal. But we can't make the argument that we've lost a ton of revenue because people haven't been out buying things and the sales tax revenue is down. Well, that's not COVID-related.
Yeah.
In terms of the state's position. So, and if the bulk of that 38 million is from the states, that it has to be a COVID-related, it may look good on the surface, but that money may not have a whole lot of flexibility within the scope of what the nonprofits are dealing with. On the other hand, if they can use it, I mean, that's something to consider if we're talking about another $500,000 going into it that, I mean, it may not be needed, and if, if this wave that everybody says is coming in October, November, do we want to keep our powder dry for some other point? But I think we'd really like to get a status of where we are with the money that's been given and the mission of those groups that are doing it. And the other question is, if I recall, and this is just some clarification, for those of you that are too young to remember, the original creation of the United Way was to prevent every organization that wanted to raise funds going knocking on businesses' doors.
Right.
In other words, there wouldn't be 35 people come to Valero and say, can you give me a contribution for my nonprofit? Or going to Pioneer Resorts or Macomb Relocation or the bank. They said, the business people just said, we want to give to the community and we're just being inundated, and so, I'd just like to write a check to one person, and out of it came the United Way. That if they joined up as a participant in the United Way, then Valero or Exxon or something could write a $10,000 check one time, and then it would be divided up among all the different organizations. That was the birth of the United Way, for those of you that don't know.
Yeah.
But over the years, in addition to giving to the United Way, those organizations have started coming back knocking on people's doors because I guess the demand for their services is so big. But my question is this. The funds that are being proposed in this, and this is why I want to get Libby to make sure we got it all right. I don't know if you call them member organizations or what you call them what do you call them if they get money from United Way? An approved agency or a member agency, or how do you do that? Because I don't think all 501c3s are United Way. They don't get money from the United Way. So the question we need to know is this fund going to be simply to their narrow membership, or is it going to be to all 501c3s in the community?
Well, and Peter and I had that conversation when we originally talked about even setting this up. First of all, and Peter, my understanding is that the United Way was asked to help, not because it was going to be a means for them to give their existing membership, but in terms of looking at grants and being able to disseminate and score the grants to see who should be eligible. They have that knowledge. So they're really the administrator, but this is not a United Way project. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah.
This is really the city saying, and so I want to make a big clarification here, is that if you have an organization that is receiving state funds already or receiving national funds and they're eligible, part of the reimbursement under COVID-19, then they shouldn't be eligible. This money, and at least this is the conception that I had talked to Peter about, should be used for local agencies that have no other source. And there are organizations out there that do not get any state money. They don't belong to the United Way. They do not belong to any federal agency where they get funds down. The only way that they get funds is by applying for grants. And what's happened, though, is that these large organizations that used to do grants have shut their grants down. So their monies that they depended upon to operate quarterly or semi-annually or yearly, they can't go to that well. at all, because those organizations are saying, look, until we figure out where we're at, we're not taking any more grants. I'll give you a good example. I went to Detroit and represented the city for the Lighthouse Fund, not Lighthouse Fund, but Lumina Foundation. And that was grants to help veterans and educational people understand and help them get to college. Those grants have been shut down. They can't even apply for those. So there's a lot of companies that just don't have the ability, that are local, that aren't tied into a state or federal, that don't have anything that they can do in terms of getting funds right now. Those are the ones that I'm thinking that we should be looking at.
Well, I just want to be real clear, because
This is, in my opinion, I don't want it to be a United Way project. This should be where they're basically facilitating those grants based on the criteria that we give them.
Yeah, they're gonna be our kind of our fiduciary agent or our processor.
Okay.
Just
so-
because they know the nonprofit community, they know how to work with them, and they also do grants through their own.
But it's not just the nonprofits that are their
Right, no.
members or approved, I don't know, and I'm not saying that being,
I think
I
you're
just
saying
don't
it right.
understand how
We
that,
kind
what
of
they're
understand-
classified as.
Yeah, we understand it. There's member nonprofits that are a member.
Right.
But this was, the United Way is not being contracted with for that purpose, but rather to take applications and judge them and then help us manage the distribution of the
Okay.
funds.
And then, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I've heard on several reports, and I don't know where it is. It may be way in the future, it may be in the near future, but that I understand that there probably somewhere in the pipeline relatively quickly is gonna be a boatload of money that comes down that deals with childcare and those kind of services. So, now how long that's gonna take Congress to get it done, but I mean, that seemed to have been one of the hurdles getting back to the private sector. Some daycares were open just for people that worked for cities where the person needed to go back to work at a department store or teaching school or something. Their daycare facilities weren't back open, and so, but there's a boatload of money evidently and childcare is gonna be a big part of it, and education and this sort of stuff. So
Right.
there could be a whole lot of money coming. Now, how long it's gonna be, I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll all probably be wrapped up before the November election, though, I can almost bet you that. No matter which side of the aisle you sit on, it'll be done by November. Anything else? If not, we will adjourn, so Mr. Garza can go celebrate his anniversary. Meeting adjourned.